Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very special Facebook Live. My first time here from the Thank Our Key Workers page on group. It's great to be here. For those of you who don't know, my name's Dave Steele. I've become to be known as the Blind Poet, and we're going to kind of get to that in a little while. But I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes just to wait for people to join on, and then we're going to kind of get started. And I'll tell you why I'm here and why I've been invited here today. So we're just waiting for a couple of minutes for people to join on. There's been a lot of invites kind of sent out, and I'm sure people will be joining on momentarily. But while we wait for them to do that, I'm just going to explain why I'm here today. So, as I said, my name's Dave Steele. I'm from Manchester here in the UK. I know there's going to be a few people watching here today, not just from the UK, but from places like America and across Europe that have been invited from my kind of Facebook page. I was invited here by one of the admins of the group, Anne-Marie, who I believe is watching, who also has the same sight loss condition as I have, which is called Retinitis Pigmentosa, or RP for short. And the reason why I've kind of been invited here is because I wanted to share with you my story and tell you about my journey with low vision and share with you some of the poetry that I write that speaks about that. And the reason why I am doing it at the moment and why I'm here in particular in showing support for our key workers is in these days where we are in the midst of a pandemic and we are living in isolation and a lot of us are dealing with anxiety, a lot of these challenges, I was going to say problems, but a lot of these challenges that I talk about within the poetry that I write, but it was written about low vision, is to do with dealing with social isolation and anxiety and things like that. So I'm finding at the moment a lot of people can relate to the poetry that I write. So in support of our key workers, I'm going to get started. We've got a few people joining now, and I normally start with this poem, which is from my first book, and it goes like this. I have a secret from the world that most of you don't know. You won't hear it in the way I talk, and eyes no clue will show. If you listen to my story, something new to learn you'll find. For though I'm looking straight at you, I'm legally blind. It's not a simple yes or no, I'm more a shade of grey. I rarely venture out alone as things get in the way. For what I see affects my days in much more ways than one. And this for some continues, until little left has gone. But still this pain's invisible to those that pass us by. There's some afraid to hold a cane, because of questions why. Accused of making up our claim and made to feel a fraud. Feel drained of all my confidence, feel trapped behind this door. Now, hardest thing to come to terms that makes my days feel long. It holds us back, knowledge they lack for all who've got it wrong. To hear their judge and jury, even though their facts aren't straight. Feel misdirected fury, wish opinions now could wait. To take the time to get to know the visions that we share. Come join me in my tunnel, hold my hand and show you care. Okay, so that poem there, which is called My Blind Secret, is all about how a lot of people out there have the common misconception that if you are blind or you are registered blind or severely sight impaired, as it's classed here in the UK, that you have no sight at all, or that you have to look a particular way to be blind. And most people look at me and they say, well, you don't look blind, but that is a very common misconception. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and a bit about my story and my condition. So, my name's Dave Steele, as I said. I've come to be known as the Blind Poet in the last few years. And my journey started really 6 years ago last week. I was diagnosed with a condition called Retinitis Pigmentosa, or RP for short. Anne-Marie, who's one of the admins on this page, also has the same condition. Now, Retinitis Pigmentosa, or RP, is a hereditary disease, so it runs in the family. In my particular case, it comes from my mum's side. I've got a mum who's completely blind with it, and I've got a couple of sisters that have got it as well, and some uncles and nephews and nieces and things like that. So I always knew that I had RP in the family. Now, the way RP affects your vision is it starts off with night blindness. So with night blindness, it is walking from a brightly lit room, or a brightly lit being outside in the sunshine, and walk into a dimly lit room or a dimly lit area. So, for example, when the average person walks from a cinema outside, or walks outside into a cinema, I should say, it normally takes them a couple of seconds for their eyes to adjust to that dimly lit light, whereas someone with night blindness won't adjust at all. So, in low light or dimly lit rooms, it's like complete blackness to me. I can't see at night time. I can no longer see the stars, which is quite a big thing. So they're the kind of first stages of RP. And then after that, you start to lose your peripheral vision. So they call it tunnel vision. So it's like a tunnel closing inwards. And then you start to lose your central vision next. And then you are unable to recognize faces. So where I can see at the moment is my left eye is completely blind. I can't see out of that at all. That's completely blurred. And my right eye is like looking through a straw. So I have no peripheral vision, but I do have a tiny bit of central vision where I can still read large text and I can still see faces at the moment, but that will deteriorate shortly. So my story started 6 years ago. It was actually 6 years ago last week, just celebrated the anniversary of it. I walked in for a routine eye test at my local optician's. I knew I had RP in the family, but I was always told it wouldn't affect me until I was much older. But what I used to do was I used to get myself checked at the opticians just to make sure I was still safe for driving and things like that every couple of years. So I went in for a routine eye exam 6 years ago, and when they looked in the back of my eyes, they said, the pigment is really kind of thick there. You need to stop driving straight away, and that was pretty much it. And I walked out of that eye exam with my wife, who was at the time my fiance, Amy, sat there with our 6-month-old baby boy, Austin, who said we'd not long had. I'd just proposed to get married the previous Christmas Day, and we were saving to get married, and that moment, my whole world changed. I can remember it very, very clearly. I kind of walked out of the optician's waiting room in slow motion and broke the news to Amy that I was being told I could no longer drive and that I was going blind. A week later, I was diagnosed as being severely sight impaired, legally blind. I told my employer, I was working in car sales at the time and I was working as a singer, and I could no longer drive, so I couldn't do any of the gigs that I had booked in. I told my job working in car sales at the time, and they let me go because I couldn't do test drives. And what followed was a very dark time in our lives. We struggled to get the support out there that we so desperately need from the benefit system. We applied for the main benefit, which is called personal independence payment, and there was a 9-month waiting list for that. And all the while we started to fall into debt because we couldn't afford the bills, we couldn't afford the rent on the house we were staying in. And we really started to struggle. I started to deal with anxiety and depression because I started to lose my sight quite rapidly. My peripheral went within about 8 months, all of it. And during that time, I was feeling guilty for the financial pressure I was putting on my family, and we were just getting doors shut in our face at every kind of moment and opportunity. All the people that were supposed to be there to help us, unfortunately, weren't. And we were tied up in the system, as many people are. And that's not just people with sight loss, but people with disability in general. But things all kind of changed for me about 8 months down the line. And it was through social media and Facebook where it all started to change. My sister, who also has RP, advised me to join some support groups like this and talk to people who were going through the same thing, because talking to people who are dealing with the same kind of challenges is sometimes the best way to heal and to understand. A lot of times, not just with low vision, but for anyone who gets a diagnosis, whether it be, low vision, blindness, cancer, anything like that, you tend to get the diagnosis in a very kind of cold, clinical, way, as in, a matter of fact, this is what's going to happen, and that's it. When I was diagnosed, I was told, you're probably going to lose your sight. We're going to have to do some genetic testing because your children might have it, and there's no treatment or cure. So that was kind of what I was dealing with. So when I got the advice from my sister saying to join some of these support groups, I wanted to do everything that I could in order to do that. So I joined some support groups. I started speaking to people and found it a great help. And through that, I got asked to attend a meeting in Newcastle for people with RP, my condition, and also Usher syndrome, which is the same form of sight loss that I have, but dualled with hearing loss as well, so deafblind people. And that was my first time to be around, physically around, and be in the same room as people who were losing the sight and also losing the hearing as well. And the prospect of that for me was quite scary because it was almost like getting a glimpse into the future. And I remember feeling quite nervous about attending a support group, but that kind of changed when they heard that I worked as a singer and they asked me if I would be the entertainment for the day. And as soon as they said, would I come and sing, I was like, absolutely, yes, I'll come and do that for you guys. So the night before the event, I was feeling quite excited about it because even though I was dealing with anxiety and a lot of issues like that, I found that being on stage and being in my comfort zone singing was something that I felt, fairly good about, and it felt like something that I could do. So the night before the event, I was in bed with my soon-to-be wife, Amy, and I was going over ideas of songs to sing the following day. And I thought it would be a great idea if I could take a song that everyone knew, but change the words, so it would have more of an impact, more of an emotional response. So I had this amazing idea where I thought, I'll change the words to the song Stand By Me by Benny King. We all know it? Yep, okay. The reason why I chose that song is because I love the opening line of when the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. Because that was just, like night blindness to me. So in 20 minutes, I rewrote the song. I changed the lyrics. I rewrote a new chorus. I called it Stand By Me RP. And the following day, I went to perform that song at the support group. And the response that I got from the people in the room that day was just incredible. That night when I came up with the idea, I remember saying to Amy, this idea that I've just had is going to change everything for us. It's going to take me on a journey and it's going to lead us somewhere. And she pretty much just said, shut up, Dave, I want to get back to sleep. But when I performed that song that day, the following day, at the support group in Newcastle, people were in tears. People were coming up to me afterwards saying that I was able to describe how they felt about their journey with low vision and blindness. And it made them feel like they were less alone. So that kind of struck something in me. And from that moment, every day, I started to write poetry. Because music to me and poetry is the same thing. It's song lyrics. It's the same thing. Everything that I've written has been intended to be turned into music. And I'd started to write about everything that I was going through every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. A lot of times when I was in my bedroom, which is just in the room next door, feeling anxious and depressed with the curtains shut, I would write down my feelings, good and bad, and share them with the world in the hope that they would feel like they were less isolated by hearing something familiar in my words. It was like, I was speaking for them. And when I started to post these poems online onto some of these support groups, I would receive messages from all over the world telling people how they would use my words as a way for them to communicate with their friends and family and their loved ones how they were feeling when they couldn't find the words themselves. And that, for me, was the start of my journey. That was the start of me taking something that was one of my biggest challenges faced in life and turning it into a positive to help other people. And I think that's something that we can all kind of take something from at the moment, that although these times and everything that especially our key workers are going through and how hard they are fighting to keep people safe and saving lives, and how we're saving lives by staying home, this isolation that we're dealing with, this anxiety that is perfectly natural, is something that we can really take strength from. And people like myself with low vision and people with disability, it's a real time for us to lead from the front, because we can be taking our experience of dealing with these things that we deal with every day and helping our friends and our families and our loved ones get through them as well. So my low vision, my blindness to me is a blessing. I'm going to continue and tell you more about my story, but I'm going to share this poem with you. And this is all about how I find that my journey with low vision and everything that I see and me losing my sight has actually taught me to appreciate the beauty in each day, appreciate the little things in life, and see the world in a different way. And I think we can all do that at this moment with the way the world is. This one's called The Stranger, and it goes like this. Today, a stranger asked me, what has blindness done to me? Has it limited the plans I've made or the things I hope would be? Has it forced me now to settle on a life that's second best? Has it made me give up lots of things since I failed the blindness test? Do I still have aspirations, special places dream to go? Is there any point in beauty if the eyes don't work to show? But my answer came so quickly, not a thought considered twice. I am happy for this blindness, for the way it's changed my life. It has taught me what's important and shown me who my real friends are. And I wouldn't change the things I've learned just to get back in my car. I have met amazing people since this RP took my sight. We share in common struggles, joined together through this plight. Though my retinas are dying, my mind's vision has increased. For each day I'm making memories, for long after sight has ceased. So never offer pity for the broken sense I've lost, for I feel I have gained more than the price that blindness cost. There we go. So, continuing on with my story, and I'm going to sort of share some more poetry as we kind of go through this, as well as some poetry that I've written especially for this time in our lives with dealing with this pandemic and COVID-19. So, yeah, I started writing poetry every single day. It literally just started to pour out of me. I was writing every day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. I then started my own Facebook page, which I called the Stand By Me RP awareness page after that song. And that now is one of the largest RP support groups in the world. And I try and support people and help people with low vision in everything I do every single day. Now, after about a year from the point of when I started writing the poetry, I'd written over 100 poems, and people were starting to, really sort of love the work that I do and be helped by it, and all saying the same thing, that I was helping them feel like they were less alone, and they were using my words to communicate to their friends and family how they were feeling. And they were all saying to me, messaging me all the time, people all over the world saying, you need to do a book. You need to write a book. And I'd never considered writing a book before. But when I started to write this poetry and build this audience of people and get these messages, what it was doing for me was I was going through the things that most people with a disability or low vision tend to go through, or blindness. I had a loss of independence, a loss of confidence, a loss of pride. But the biggest thing it took from me was my purpose. I didn't know what I was going to do next. So when I found these words, all of a sudden it felt like I could really do something and have a purpose again. So, it really was healing me at the same time as me helping other people. And so when people suggested about this book, they started a GoFundMe campaign. And in February 2016, I released my first book. There it is. Stand By Me, RP. Excuse me. And there it is on the back there. And this got released. And to my surprise, in the first week, it became the #1 European poetry release on Amazon in both America and Australia. Hey, Suzanne, how are we doing? That for me was unbelievable. And it kind of all started from there. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from this book, Stand By Me RP Volume 1. And I hope you guys can relate to some of these, because as I said, at the moment, I think a lot of these feelings that I talk about in this poetry, people can relate to, not just those with low vision, but those that are going through these challenging times being under lockdown. This one's called Tomorrow. Tomorrow I will promise no longer be held back. Tomorrow won't feel incomplete for this one sense I lack. Tomorrow I won't stay indoors, no longer be recluse. Tomorrow they will value me, no longer be no use. Tomorrow I will not feel scared to walk alone in crowds. Tomorrow I'll be more prepared, feel confident and proud. Tomorrow they will look at me and see the man inside. Tomorrow I'll feel valued, will be seen as more than blind. Tomorrow I will see the world, although with blur and haze. Tomorrow I won't feel upset, there'll be no bad-eye days. Tomorrow I won't feel alone, when strangers won't believe. Tomorrow I won't be hurt by those who chose to leave. Tomorrow I will step outside and proudly use my cane. Tomorrow I'll ignore the stares, no longer feel ashamed. Tomorrow all my fears away, if your strength I can borrow. So maybe it should be today, instead of just tomorrow. There we go. So, that poem, for those of you that are affected by low vision, what that kind of talks about is the misconceptions that are out there to do with low vision and blindness. People thinking you have to look a certain way to be blind, or that you're either completely blind or not at all. Those that think that you have to be completely blind to use a cane or to have a guide dog. I can see faces, I can read a book, I don't look a certain way. Here's my cane. And, Christopher, watch this. If I just, come here, it's a treat, it's a treat. Here is my guide dog, Christopher. Come here. Sit. Here we go, look at this boy. A very handsome boy. Aren't you, Chris? You ready? And watch how good he is at commands. It's a treat. Ready? Down. Good boy. Ready? And up sit. Good lad. Now, Christopher, let me just turn this round. I will get him a treat once we're done. Christopher is actually, an amazing dog. When I got Christopher, I actually applied on the guide dog waiting list I was on the waiting list for about 18 months. And this is the strange thing, how my life has gone and how bizarre this kind of story is as we get to it. This book, Stand By Me RP, on the day this was released, on the day this book came out, which was February 2016, which is also RP Awareness Month, when that first was released, myself and my wife Amy were on our way to go and celebrate, and on the way to the restaurant, we got a phone call, and it was guide dogs telling me that they'd found me a match. And literally, we got that call on the day that my book came out, and both Amy and I were a complete shock, crying, total double whammy. And a week later, I met Christopher, trained with him, went on a 2-week training course, and he's been with me now 4 years, and he's completely changed my life. But yeah, that's Christopher. So you don't have to look a certain way to be blind, and you don't have to not be able to see faces to use a cane, or I can use my phone, and but I still need my cane when I go out, because I've got no peripheral and I trip over things and it's dangerous for me crossing roads, and that's what my guide dog does, and that's what my cane does. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that and accuse people of, like myself, of faking our blindness because we use our cane and pull our phones out on a bus or on a train. And unfortunately, what that does is it stops a lot of people who, like me, have low vision from taking the help that's out there and the things that they need to get around because of fear of being judged. So if anyone out there is not affected by low vision, you take anything from this today, I want you to take from it that don't judge people. There are many different shades of blindness, and you don't have to look a certain way to be blind or use a cane or anything like that. I'm going to continue on and read you a poem. Now, this one's a bit of a special poem because I wrote this about these times in support of our key workers, and I hope you guys can relate to this. I don't even need to explain this one, but there's no title for this poem. It's not from any books. I literally wrote this a couple of weeks ago from a webinar I did where I spoke to a lot of people in America, and from those people's kind of feelings, I wrote this poem, and it goes like this. In times like these, we all can feel a little more alone. The whole world's isolating. Our anxiety has grown. A virus sweeping coast to coast that none of us can see. It's time we pulled together, though apart, let's still be we. We all can play our role in helping others who feel low. Our mental health is vital when we've got no place to go. But keeping social distance, staying home all that we can, is saving lives. Let's stop the rise. This is the only plan. Let's use all social media, connect this World Wide Web with all the things that people need until waves of sickness ebb. So let us never forget that together we will cope. I'm sending out these rhyming words, this poetry of hope. We've won our independence. We can do it now once more. Whilst living with low vision, we've been trapped behind this door. I know there's plenty out there who, like me, know how it feels when things out of our control our independence steal. When all of this is over and the virus is no more, let people come together like they never have before. Too long we've been divided by the things that shouldn't count. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's be kind in large amounts. There we go. Okay, so we've got people watching. I know people are going to be watching it later and things like that. So I don't care if you're watching now live or later on. I want to be interactive. So if you've got questions or comments, anything you want to share, then please do. Who is watching? Let's see who's out there. Simon, how we doing? Anne-Marie and Laura. Suzanne's out there. Darren's out there. Yeah, good few people. Okay, so if you got anything you want to hear or want to talk about, then let me know. I'm going to read some more poetry. I have written some more actually about this. There was one I wrote the other day. I just want to try and find it. Because it talks about the key workers. I'm getting all my inspiration from you guys at the moment. So if you're a key worker, my wife Amy is a key worker. She works at a primary school, looking after the children of hospital staff and people like that. So, big round of applause for all the key workers as we're doing every Thursday. We really, really appreciate you guys and couldn't be doing this without you. Let's see. Right, here it is. Okay, so I wrote this one last week. Once again, same kind of feel. This one's called COVID Days, so I hope you enjoy this. I've never read this one before, so you guys here on this page, on the Thank Our Key Workers page, are the first to hear this, and it goes like this. COVID Days. Struggling to catch my breath from all these blind eyes see. Don't know how through these COVID days I'm meant to still be me. For now we are all prisoners with our internet TVs. We suffocate in these four walls and drown in luxuries. I've chosen isolation when it was still my choice. I've bared my soul through poetry and through it found my voice. But now my wife and children are trapped with me until the scientists decide that we deserve our magic pill. Anxiety is rising with every news update. The media machine churns out its tales of fear and hate. But I can hear a cheering in the streets outside our doors. The skies are bathed in lights of blue, and it's for them I hear applause. The nurses and the doctors, all those who give us care, these heroes dressed in uniform today are truly rare. It's with unselfish sacrifice these COVID days will end. I hope that soon we're all immune, say it's just around the bend. We'll cherish newfound freedom, little things appreciate. But until then, I'll lift this pen. All we can do is wait. There we go. Okay. I'm going to go back to the books and back to my story. And maybe read a few new ones as we go. Because we've got about half an hour left. Time flies. Time flies. Okay. The first book, Stand By Me RP, Volume 1. Came out in February and was the #1 European poetry release on both Amazon in America and Australia. And I continued to write. The group began to grow. I began to heal and get more confident. I then started to speak at events. There's a charity based here in the Northwest who I want to give a massive, massive shout out to now. One of the oldest charities in the UK, a charity called Henshaw's, who are over 180 years old. I think they're about 183, 4 years old now. And they support people all across the country not just with low vision, but a whole range of other disabilities. And I became an ambassador for them and started to speak at events for them. And I actually was given an award by them. I got my first award, which I've got actually sat right here because I'm in the living room, which is just, which one is it? Oh, it's this one. Yeah, this one here, Henshaw's Award. Still got it to hand. This is I was given the Henshaw's Impact Award in 2018. And when I was given the award, or when I was told I was getting the award, they asked me to write a speech for the acceptance speech to be read in front of all the dignitaries, the local mayors, and all the people in the. It was at the Midland Hotel in Manchester. For those who don't know, it's a very kind of prestigious, posh hotel. And so I was there with my wife, and I was very nervous about having to stand in front of an audience and read a speech. I'm quite happy reading poetry and singing, but reading a speech, especially an acceptance speech, I was quite nervous about. And when I tried to write the speech, I was really, really struggling. I had a mental block, and I thought the best way for me to do that speech would be to write it in a poem. So I'm going to read it for you now. And the reason why I want to read this for you right now, because it explains my story, everything I've been telling you, why I do what I do, and my message. And I hope you guys can relate to this one. And it's become my kind of signature poem that I read at a lot of places when I go to America. And this one's called All the Tears. All the tears that I have shed, and these scars upon my wrist, have made me who I am today, prepared me now for this. I wouldn't be so strong if I had never failed before. I'd still be isolated, scared to step outside my door. I'm not saying that I'm over this. Those bad-eyed days still come. For even now, whilst reading this, I'm blinded by the sun. I'm anxious and my chest is tight. I feel like giving in. But deep inside my heart, I know I'll never let this win. I promised just 5 years ago, when blindness certified, through poetry I'd share my tale to others far and wide, so no one ever need to feel alone with losing sight, explain their thoughts to loved ones through these verses that I write. But never did I imagine that my words could do so much. They have healed the hearts of strangers, opened doors with slightest touch. I'll be a friend my pride will mend, my purpose clear to see. 3 books will be my legacy. I stand by me, RP. I know that soon these faces that I look upon today will disappear, but I won't fear. These memories will stay. My wife, my sons, my daughter, in here will never age. My love for them is printed in each poem, verse and page. When last is gone, I'll carry on to make my family proud, to be a voice for others, to help them lift this hazy shroud, inspire them to grab a cane and step outside their homes. 4 words, each poem's message, saying you are not alone. And that is a real important message. You guys are not alone. We're not alone. We are so lucky that we've got social media. I'm so thrilled at the moment to see how people are taking to social media to use it in such a positive way and to connect with people. And that's pretty much what I try to do every single day, and I've tried to do for a long, long time since my story kind of began. So, as I said, the first book came out in 2016 because February is RP Awareness Month. I then released Stand By Me RP Volume 2, I should say, Volume 2, which came out February 2017. That became the #1 European poetry release on Amazon and in America and Australia, not in its first week, but in its first day, which was just incredible to be able to do that. So I'm going to read a poem from that. There it is at the back. You can see a little cartoon drawing by the amazing, talented Susan Osborne, who might be watching, who drew characters of my entire family, including Christopher. And I'm going to read a poem from this. I'm going to pick one. Let me see. Trying to find a particular one, so bear with me 1 second. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read this poem. This poem I actually didn't write, funnily enough, and I've never read this one, but I really wanted to take the opportunity to do this. This journey for us, and I just want to kind of show you who us are. In fact, because it's all right talking about my family, but it's nice to show pictures so you can actually connect. So myself and my wife, Amy, who have been married now 5 years. That's us there. My daughter Ellie, who I'm going to read you a poem about shortly, who is by a previous relationship, who lives in Scotland with her mum. She's 12 now. Our son Austin is there, who's 6 now. And I have 2 stepsons, Harvey and Louis, who are there with Austin. And obviously guide dog Christopher. So, in my first year, when I was diagnosed with RP, there's lots of different types of RP, but the particular type that we've got in our family is quite complicated. It's what they call autosomal dominant. So basically what that means is there's a clear trace in my family. You get some people with RP who don't have anyone else in the family with it. It may have skipped generations, but the type that I have in my family is called RP, autosomal dominant. It means there's a clear trace. And the hardest part about RP for me is not the aspects of what it does to my sight or my independence and my confidence so much. It's the fact that it's hereditary. We found out after having genetic testing when I was diagnosed that there's a 1 in 2 chance that my son Austin and my daughter Ellie will develop RP when they're older and lose their sight. Just let that sink in for a second. So my children may go blind when they're older with the same sight loss that I have. Now, there's no way of being able to test whether they are definitely going to go blind because we know they're carriers. That's a definite. With the specific type that we have in my family, there is the first stages of night blindness that I spoke about at the beginning of this don't normally happen until late teens, early 20s. So my daughter Ellie is 12, my son Austin's 6. We've pretty much just got to wait until they get to that kind of stage to see if they are going to start those first stages. So it's a bit of a ticking time bomb. So naturally I feel guilty about this, but this also inspires me to help others and show my children and everyone else that despite the limitations that we have with low vision, it shouldn't stop us achieving our dreams. And that's very, very important, not just with low vision, but any kind of disability or life in general. So that's the message that I try and show. But from book 2, the poem that I'm about to read, I wrote a poem called Shift This Cloud. It's for my son Austin and my daughter Ellie. Well, I'll just show you the picture again. There's one here. So for my son Austin and my daughter Ellie, I wrote Shift This Cloud, and it talks about just that. And it goes like this. How do I break the news of what I may have done to you? Won't know for sure, but doctors say the odds are 1 in 2. I look into your eyes and watch for signs I hope aren't there. Pray this RP will end in me, no faulty gene is shared. This tunnel world I live in hope one day won't be your view. Don't follow in my steps or place foot inside my shoe. The battle for acceptance will be just a story told. With perfect sight, not hurt by light, clear vision break the mould. I carry heavy guilt through sleepless nights and secret tears. I wait to know the answer, ticking clock of RP's fears. But if in future blindness does come knocking at your door, I'll lead you by example, show you life is so much more. My son, be proud, we'll shift this cloud and dance in heavy rain. I'll show you all that's possible, strong heart and long white cane. With poems raise awareness, this will be my legacy. 3 books will travel round the world, my Stand By Me RP. So years from now, when you're fully grown, if blindness burden shared, just look at what your dad's achieved, so you'll be more prepared. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give you one more of those poems, because I wrote one for my daughter Ellie as well. Now, the situation with Ellie's fairly different. Ellie comes from a previous relationship, quite a strange relationship with her mum. We've been through a kind of whole court access challenge for me to be able to see Ellie on a regular basis. It's been quite tough. She used at one point my sight against me. And so our relationship, mine and Ellie's relationship, has been challenged on quite a number of fronts over the last few years. And so Ellie's 12, and I wrote this poem a couple of years ago. It's called The Secret. And what the poem is about, it's about when's the right time for those of us who, like me, have RP and have a 1 in 2 chance of passing it on to their children. When's the right time to have that talk with your child and explain that in a kind of way and shift that burden onto them. So I wanted to put my feelings down in a poem, which I always do. This one's called The Secret, and I hope you'll understand and appreciate it. It took me years to come to terms with how my eyes declined, through stages of acceptance, of slowly going blind. But nothing I could ever do would allow me to prepare, to tell my little girl a thing I still don't want to share. It's tortured me through sleepless nights, consumed my mind with guilt. This secret I have kept from her could break the trust I've built. I pray that she will understand the things I've tried to do, and why I've never told her that she could be 1 in 2. But she is still a child and far too young to burden with a fate that I might pass to her, for now's her time to live. But soon will come a moment when I know she must be told, when all the battles I have won, I'll pass for her to hold. But for every unheard question, there's an answer I've prepared. They're written in each line, each verse, each poem that I've shared. For every page I've filled, I've emptied out my heart and soul, so one day she would know the way. That's always been my goal. So Ellie, I hope years from now, you'll be there reading this. Know you can do amazing things, whether RP hit or miss. My inheritance to you won't be a passed down faulty gene, but knowing all life's beauty that this VIP has seen. There we go, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try and fit as much in as possible. I know we've got some people asking some questions, so I'm going to kind of go back on those. Suzanne Clark, if Suzanne Clark is still watching, what I want you to do is put in the comments, Suzanne, if you don't mind, how you came across me, or what the poetry does to you, or does for you, I should say. For those who don't know, Suzanne Clark worked for the NHS as a nurse doing palliative care for most of her life, and was diagnosed with RP a few years back, and was really struggling, and discovered one of my poems online, which really kind of helped her, and has kind of been there ever since, and is now supporting people herself, so volunteering for the RNIB and doing some amazing work and inspiring others. Just reading your comment there, Susan. I'll have to read that later. I can't actually read it. It's too small for me. I'll carry on. Anyway, there's a poem from this book, Stand By Me RP Volume 3, which came out February 2018. Also #1 European poetry release, Amazon, America and Australia. And it's called It's Okay. Let's see if I can find it. And this one, I'm sure everyone can relate to at the moment. It's kind of struggling, having a bad day, because bad days are perfectly normal. But like every bad day, it ends. They don't last. A new day begins. And this was the poem that changed the course of Suzanne Clark's acceptance path with this. It's called Okay, and it goes like this. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. For all the sight we're yet to lose as our loved ones' faces fade. But don't let that fear consume you, or push the ones you love away. Despite all that's gone, to them hold on. Through the fog, they'll lead the way. But if friends and family leave you because they don't understand, just remember you are not alone. This life never goes as planned. Though we may be total strangers and reside on different shores, through these poems I know your story. This life... For my tunnels, same as yours. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. Though you may not see, you've a friend in me that will never be betrayed. There we go. There's another poem actually in here that I want to find. Before I do that, I want to Oh, here it is, actually. No, I want to read it just now because I want to try and fit as many poems in as possible as I can. This one's called Together. I read this the other day. And once again, I think everyone out there, you don't have to have sight loss to understand and relate to this one. If you like this one, I want to see hearts flashing. So you got to press your hearts when I'm reading this one. This one's called Together, and it goes like this. I long to see the faces of the people that I love. I long to see the beauty of the stars from up above, to watch our children playing on a beach of golden sand. No matter what the challenge is, we'll face it hand in hand. Though sights forever fading and details fade to blur, I know together we will be, that's one thing that I am sure. I hope one day they find a cure, so once again I'll see the sparkle in your eyes when you were looking back at me. But I won't waste a moment, not holding out for this. Although sometimes I think about the beauty that I miss. I'm still a lucky man and I'm grateful for my life. For in my strong embrace I'll hold my children and my wife. Don't need all of my senses for happiness to share. I may not see your face, but I will always know you're there. We'll make each day a moment. We'll sail across the sea. No matter what blind future brings, together we will be. There we go. Yeah. So, we've got time for a few more. I think what time are we on now? So we just check the time. We've got 14 minutes left. So I'm going to squeeze as much in as I can. Yes, I'm sure we like that one. So let me just see if I can see any of these questions, because I know there's a few out there. If there are comments, even if you're watching later on and it's not live, I will check it and reply to them. So let me see. Anne-Marie, you were asking before, what home adaptations have been lifesavers for you? Let me see. There's been, well, also, first of all, learning to use my cane and my guide dog. Home adaptations, really, it's just using tech. A lot of the best kind of tech out there at the moment, the likes of iPhones and iPads and things like that are all kind of built in. Most mobile phones these days come built in with like Zoom text and voice to text and all these kind of things. Every poem that I've written over 700 poems now in 6 years, and 3 books, a new children's book series which will be coming out, was supposed to be coming out this year, but looks like it'll be next year now, which I've all done on my phone. And it's just, we're very lucky in this day and age, and with everything that's going on at the moment, that we have all the tech and gadgets that we have to make life much easier. So as far as actual specific pieces of tech which are amazing for people with low vision, ones I can recommend are Oxsight have some glasses which give people who have no peripheral vision like myself their peripheral vision back, which is just incredible piece of kit. If you haven't looked it up, look for Oxsight. That's Oxsight, UK-based company, based out of Oxford, Oxsight. There's also a new device that's not out yet called Wayband, which is just an incredible navigation tool. It's a wearable wristband that you wear on your wrist, and through an app on your phone, it uses vibration to guide you, which is just brilliant. So you don't need to look at your phone or look at maps or be distracted by anything. You can literally use your cane or your guide dog, and it will vibrate when you are going in the wrong direction and keep you going right, which is brilliant. So I've actually got one of those sat through there. I do some pieces for them. But yeah, so that's all part of my story now. This is kind of what I do. I travel all over the world. I've just been in America a couple of times. I was supposed to be just a week before the lockdown came into place here in the UK. I had the honour of being named as the first ever British person to be the host for the annual Helen Keller Awards in Washington, DC, which, I'm going to be doing next year. But what an honour to do that. I've come now to be known as the Blind Poet, hence we've got all sorts. I've got Blind Poet merchandise now and everything. Tattoo on my arm of the logo there, I don't know if you can see there, BP in Braille. But yeah, so I'm going to read you some more poems. Let me see. Stuff that we can relate to. Okay. Let's see. In fact, I'm going to read some off here. I'm just going to move this about slightly, so just bear me a second. So I'm going to switch to my iPad and go for some poems from here. Okay. So this is one, once again, that people can relate to, and I'm sure now you've heard my story, you'll understand where I'm coming from with the words of this. I've got time for a couple more, I think. This one's called Wait. Don't take your sight for granted, the things that you can see. Life's beauty feel in memory seal, consume them carefully. The smiles of those who love you, that look within their eyes. Each frame hold on, for soon may come the day it shrinks in size. For I know how important this little left I've got. I'm thankful for the sight I have, won't dwell on what I've not. Tomorrow's sight uncertain, no promise of our cure. So I will love and cherish these gifts today for sure. I'm hooked on vision's beauty. I'm lucky for its grace. I soak in every detail upon my true love's face. For soon that blurred tomorrow will finally be here. So I won't blink whilst on the brink. This blindness I won't fear. Although sometimes I worry, for days when sight has gone, I know that when the time arrives, this life will carry on. I'm an expert at adjusting. I've been doing it for years. I've learned to breathe while I still grieve. I've learned to own my fears. I'm stronger than I thought. I'm braver than you think. For I have saved my life before when stood there on the brink. I wonder though sometimes if my heart is growing numb. These days I don't feel half as much for what is still to come. It flows like waves in ocean, like sudden change in tide. I sit here writing words for you, whilst from outside world I hide. But I have made a promise that I won't stay here long. For even in the darkest times I know that I am strong. My battles with depression, these anxious feelings shake. I try to find new ways to win from the moment I awake. But you won't see me failing. Just try and try again. For through these words my thoughts are heard by hand of poet's pen. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Suzanne's saying that the sound has gone. Is the sound still working? Let me know if the sound's still working, guys. I don't know if we've got an issue there. I hope it's still working. Anne-Marie's saying, do you get flashes of light in your eyes? I have constant bright flashes. Yes, I do. One of the common parts of RP. Not everyone suffers with the flashes, but I certainly do. Yeah, the sound's still on. That's fine. Okay, 7 minutes left, so we've got time for a couple more poems, I think. Let me see. What else can we read? Okay. I want to tell you a little story, actually, first, quickly. Because, sight loss, it's not all, sadness and hard times and struggling. And, there's a lot of funny times with it as well. We all have these kind of funny stories where our low vision has got us into kind of awkward situations. And I like to share my one of my stories about that with people because it does make them laugh, and I hope you guys can appreciate this. Now, this goes back to when I was working as a singer before I was diagnosed with RP. When I was still gigging, I used to tour around, do cruise ships, and a lot of the holiday parks. I used to do cabaret at those as well as a singer. And I was doing some gigs down on the south coast. This is about 8-9 years ago now. And I was doing some gigs down there and had a couple of days off in between shows. So I checked myself into a hotel. Now, this is before I was diagnosed with RP. This is probably when I had the night blindness aspect, but I was maybe in denial a little bit about my low vision and just kind of put it to the back of my mind and was getting on with things. But anyway, so a couple of days off in between gigs, checked into this hotel, went down to the gym to use the gym in the afternoon, and went into the gym for a bit, went for a swim, thought I'd go for a sauna. Went to the sauna, pretty quiet, opened the door, and all the steam came out. It was pretty dark in there. And as I was saying about with the night blindness, I waited in the doorway for about a minute for my eyes to adjust so I could see where the seats were, because it was dark and it was misty. So I waited for about a minute till my eyes adjusted to the dark light in there. And then to my horror, I realised that when my eyes adjusted, there was one woman on her own, sat in the sauna, and basically what I'd done is walked to the door, opened the door, and stood there for a minute staring at her. Not moving, in the doorway. Trying to adjust my eyes, but she didn't know that. And literally, as soon as I sat down, she got up and left, thinking, who the hell is this freak? But there we go. My low vision does tend to get me into some tricky situations. I remember my gym that I go to, I normally go training at the gym. And when I first started going to the gym, there was quite often I'd trip over people doing press-ups on the floor or sit down at a piece of equipment and not realising there was somebody already on it and literally sitting on men's laps, which is not the greatest thing to be doing in a gym. Certainly not my kind of gym anyway. But anyway, so there we go. I'm going to read one more poem, I think. Before I go. Let me see. Going to find one more to do. Okay, yeah, I know what I'm going to read. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this one. Once again, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you once again to everyone that invited me to speak here on the Thank Our Key Workers page, group page. And I hope you're all well. If anyone wants to look me up, the Stand By Me RP books 1, 2, and 3 are available on Amazon. You can get them, or if you want to order them directly from me for like signed copies, if you want them personally signed and dedicated to anyone, then drop me a message and we can get that sorted out for you. I can get some signed copies put in the post to you and ordered. And if anyone would like to check me out on social media or online, you can go to theblindpoet.net. I'll put a link in the comments in a bit, but theblindpoet.net is my website. With all my information and places and events where I'll be speaking at. If anyone wants to come and see me live and see me read and talk, I'd love to see you all and meet you there. But yeah, thanks Suzanne, recommended the books. But yeah, check out the books. You can order them from me or get them on Amazon and theblindpoet.net, or on Facebook, The Blind Poet, or Stand By Me RP. Come and see me and look me up. But once again, thank you. I'm going to leave you with this one. I've only ever read this once, but this one kind of sums it up, and it goes like this. I've secretly been practicing for how my life might be, when the beauty of this world my eyes no longer clearly see. I close them tight, shut out the light, and listen to the sound of my cane moving left to right upon uneven ground. The fear that grows within me as I'm walking down the street won't stop me heading out my door, by blindness not be beat. I'll keep control, my heart and soul will help me to be bold, and if sometimes they fail me, I've still got this cane I hold. The faces of my family, the people I hold dear, the ones who understand me, my friends I see right here. I'm taking in these moments whilst I'm reading this to you. I'm soaking in this beauty through my pinhole tunneled view. I've learnt what most important from my sight loss these 5 years. I've battled with depression and I've hidden secret tears. At times I've lost my temper to that spoon dropped on the floor, but I won't let this hold me back, not me, again, no more. My son and daughter need me, for one day it may be them, who lose their sight, shut out the light, pick up the blind poet's pen. So I'm leading by example, to all my words can reach, reminding us we're not alone, this message I beseech. For all who say we don't look blind, please think before you speak. These misconceptions hold us back. I am blind, but I'm not weak. My disability is invisible, but believe me, it's still there. It's why I'm secretly been practicing, as for blindness I prepare. Take care, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. And once again, thank you very much for having me. For Dave Steele, Blind Poet, see you later.